Welcome back to the Breakthrough Blueprint, where we talk to entrepreneurs about their backgrounds and how they became successful today. And today I have here my friend Marcus, and I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself.
Hello, everybody watching. My name is Marcus Majors, entrepreneur, talent manager. I used to be a talent myself, so sort of multifaceted person here. You got, yeah,
That's
super
amazing.
high beast, creative, all that. Check.
That's so awesome. So, how did you get started? You mentioned you started as talent yourself. What was that?
Yeah, so I spent quite a few times in Miami. I went to school out there in Miami, and I've always had like this love for entertainment. Always loved to dance, to act, to model. A lot of people that are coming to like know me more for like my career and my job in management and music. But I used to be talent.
Mm.
I used to be a professional dancer for over 10 years. Danced with some of the most amazing artists on this planet. I did a bunch of movies, a bunch of commercials, and then that also led me to becoming a model and an actor. So did a lot of short films and a lot of commercials that are still, playing and airing these days. I think people see my pictures all the time in like airports and things like that. So for me, I've always wanted to be sort of like a manager. But when I first got out of college, I started a management company, and it was just like not moving the way I wanted to move. So instead of teaching artists and talent how to grow their brands, I just became the mad scientist to myself, and I became the thing that I was trying to teach people to become. So that's literally what led me to becoming talent. I wanted to be the manager of the talent, but I was like, all right, let me Frankenstein this. Let me reverse engineer this, become talent first, understand all the sort of bells and whistles. So then now I can teach people how to become talent and grow their brands.
Love that. Wow. So, is that why you were living in LA?
I was living in Miami. So when I was living in Miami
Mhm.
sort of helped me spearhead that sort of career and growth, right? Doing a lot of
Mhm.
movies, a lot of commercials, a lot of the modeling thing and dancing. Like I said, I danced for, so many different artists, on a tour for a lot of different artists while in Miami. And then going to LA in 2018 sort of was like that. I was hitting that sort of glass ceiling in my career, where in Miami,
Mhm.
where, the roles are starting to be the same, the castings are starting to be the same. And I knew that I had to sort of level up, become SAG, get to LA, sort of like really get into more of a better market where my career can
Mhm.
grow. And the moment I got to LA, within like, it's crazy. Within like a month, I started interning for this talent management company, and the rest was history. Like the internship turned to a position, and I'm working with, Snoop Dogg to Busta Rhymes, so all these different people that they managed at that time. And that sort of helped me start my career in talent management. So
Mhm. Wow, that's awesome. And that's great that you have the perspective from actually being talent so you know what it's like for your clients, you know what they're dealing with. Cause I've always been curious, like, what is it like to be touring as a dancer with a big artist? Like, how grueling was the schedule? And
yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And I always say, like, as a talent manager, that's sort of my advantage to this business, right? Because
hmm
sometimes artists can get in their own way, and I'm like, listen, I've been there before. Like, I understand. I know exactly how to post on social media. I know
mm
how to build my brand when it comes to social media. I know how to build
hmm
my brand when it comes to like getting out and networking. I know how to story tell because I had to do that for myself. Even down to a comp card. Like I had to create everything, every visual piece of branding and marketing thing that I had to create for myself. Now I know how to do that for an artist. So I get it. I see colors, I hear the music, I see everything. And so that is sort of an advantage. And
hmm
then being talent, sometimes managers don't really understand it either because they weren't talent. And so they don't
hmm
really understand the sort of psychological like like warfare that goes on in your mind, and that sort of battle that you have within your inner self, and that sort
mm
of duality between like wanting to be a star, but then wanting to be sort of keep things quiet and not feel cringy or not have this sort of social anxiety. So I get it because it's a lot. It's a lot, and people don't
hmm
do that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, being from LA myself, like every bartender, barista, everyone's trying to be famous. Everyone's trying to make it in comedy, like, acting, singing, and it's competitive. Like, I can't imagine like how that feels when you're competing and there's a bunch of people who are also jacked and also good looking and also were told their whole lives that they were the most talented, handsome, beautiful person, right? You put them all in one place where they're competing against each other. And that must be really hard because I know that at least from what I know, there's a lot of politics that goes into it. It's who about who
Absolutely.
you know. It's not just about your talent because there's a billion talented people out there, right?
Absolutely. I think this, it's interesting that you say that because I think the scope of like where we're going with entertainment has changed so much. Now I
Mhm.
run a record label and I see it now with the artists that we have signed and even my producer partners and things like that. Sadly, the talent isn't enough to speak for where you need to be at in your career, right? There's so many
Mhm.
different other pillars that you sort of have to sort of check that box off. And, you know, you can be super talented and it's not enough. In this day and age of
Mhm.
the industry, right? The art,
Yeah.
yes, the art is the art. You can sing, you can write,
Mhm.
speak, you can paint. The art is the art. But then in this career, there's a business part of it. And I think you have to respect both. You have to respect the art,
Mhm.
and you have to respect the business. And then a lot of artists and talent they don't understand the business, right? And so, like you said, there is a lot of politics behind it. There's a lot of sort of
Mhm.
networking and shaking the pans. There's a lot of promotional materials and brand storytelling that you need to do. And so, for me, that's sort of the piece of that I always love to teach, right? Like, what is that storytelling? What is that brand arc? Who are you? Outside of the music or outside of the
Mhm.
art in the paintings or the dancing, like who are you as a person? And let's help to define that character and that identity, and then that can help, a lot more further.
Totally, yeah. Because, like, from what I've seen, like, for instance, I went to see Mariah Carey's show in Vegas, and then I ran into one of the backup dancers at a club in Vegas, and I got to talk to him, and what I realized just from that experience and just what I've seen in general, it's like, it seems like for especially high profile artists like that, they're choosing backup dancers that are influencers, that have their own personal brand and following on Instagram, to add to obviously Mariah Carey, who's already a legend. But it's like if you're talented and good looking, but you don't have that following, I'm sure you're not going to be considered as highly as an influencer who's also a talented dancer.
Yeah, there's definitely some marketing that goes to it. I don't 100% agree with it because I do think sometimes, your talent should speak for the room that you're in. And I
Yeah.
do think because of the day and age of TikTok and the algorithm, right? Some people are in rooms because of their sort of social status. And
Yeah.
look, as a manager of talent, I can also tell you that following isn't everything. I've
Mhm.
worked for artists that
Mhm.
had huge following and they still didn't breed this sort of engagement that you would think. They still didn't get the sort of
Mhm.
brand partnerships or they still didn't have a clue of their identity. They just maybe had,
Mhm.
1.5 million followers. So following isn't always the answer. I think sometimes, there are micro influencers that are just as profound as, someone who may
Mhm.
have a million followers.
Mhm. Interesting. So I know that you were traveling around Europe recently. Was that also for an artist tour?
Yeah, so I had an artist, his name is Rick Wilson, he lives in Chicago, and so the first leg of my Europe tour, we did Paris, we did Netherlands, we did 2 shows in London, and it was amazing. He's been doing international shows before, but this is the first one that I was like, "Look, man, this year I gotta come with you." Like, the past 3 years, I've been missing your Europe run, and I had to come out with him, and so that was amazing. The last show is October 30th in Paris, so then,
Mhm.
after Paris, he went back to Chicago, and I'm like, "I'm in Europe. I think I'm gonna just stay here." So I just stayed, and I just figured it out. I had nothing planned.
Mhm.
So for 6 weeks, I traveled to 9 countries, 17 cities, and it was amazing. It was my first time in Europe, and I didn't wanna leave, and I just every day I woke up and I'm like, "Alright, I'm in Paris." It was like 3 AM in the morning. I'm like, "Alright, Imma buy this flight to Rome." Then when I was in Rome, I'm like, "Alright, cool. Do I go to Florence or Naples? Well, this train to Naples is running today at such and such time." I just made it up as I went, and
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
it was crazy because a lot of friends and my followers, they were like, "I'm living through you, through your social media," and I'm like, "You guys, I'm just making this up, like, nothing is planned. I'm over here using ChatGPT, like, help me route the best way to get to whatever I need to get to." So, it was amazing, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I had a similar trip like that in 2016. I was like unintentionally following the Euro Cup. It was my first time to Europe and the UK. I think I also went to like 9 or 10 countries, and it was the best. Like having that freedom to just travel and literally wake up and be like, well, where do I want to go today? I think that's the best part about being your own boss, working
Yeah,
remotely.
I think for me I wrote about it. I was journaling like every day, and I think coming out of that sort of trip, I think that's a lesson that I've learned, sort of perspective and enlightenment that I sort of had on my journey was like every day I got the chance to wake up and do it. I did whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have to answer for anybody but myself,
Mhm.
right? I didn't
Mhm.
have to sort of be in this sort of limbo of where do we go? How do we get there? I just decided, you know? And I think for me, I've always kind of lived that way. But then, you know, again, in my career, there's my responsibility is much more than myself. So
Mhm.
the first time in a long time, I was able to sort of wake up and just live for me. And
Mhm.
there was just something so groundbreaking from that experience that it did something to my brain waves. And now I'm in this sort
Mhm.
of new sort of
Mhm.
light and spirit of like, I just want to just do whatever, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's great. It was a great journey.
I love that. I think that's amazing. And that's one of the reasons why I love travel also. It's like you're learning so much about history in a different way than just in a classroom, right? In high school versus like actually going to the sites, actually seeing and then learning the culture. And whether that's just sitting at a coffee shop or going to a nightclub, like seeing how other people live is invaluable, I think. And I encourage people, like, because I hear about a lot of people in the US that don't have a passport, go
Absolutely.
somewhere, go to Mexico, right? Go to Colombia. It's a great stepping stone to global travel, right?
I think
Mhm.
sometimes, obviously, you know, I'm an American and there's this sort of social norm when it comes to traveling and leaving your country, right? I think a lot of
Mhm.
times there's this idea, this illusion to like, you know, our vacation is to Miami or to Atlanta or to
Yeah.
Texas or Vegas, right? Or even maybe, you know, California. And for me, I've been traveling since I was like 13 years old. I mean, my first trip was to Canada, to Quebec, Canada at that. And they, for a French field trip when I was in like middle school. And then when I was 15, I went to China and I lived there for like
Wow.
a month on this like travel exchange program. And you said something earlier. I think when you start to travel, there's a sense of like cultural intelligence that grows, right? So
Mhm.
you learn the
Mhm.
gratitude and then you learn that there's cultures beyond what you know. And so your social norms that were placing you in America goes out the windows because you start to see things and you start to live things that you never saw before. And they paint certain countries a certain way on media. And then when you get there, you're like, hold on, wait, wait
Mhm.
a minute. Like, this isn't
Mhm.
what I was shown. And so I think a lot of people need to sort of discover their own path. And if you have a passport, use it, and you will find this sort of new sense of purpose once you start to
Mhm.
move outside of the country.
Totally. Completely agree with that, and I'm sure that you saw in Asia, like, even back then, China, Asia, Korea, Japan, they've been ahead of us technologically for decades. Like, it's like going to a place of the future, and not only that, but the culture is different. Like, if you go to Japan, everyone's just standing onto the right side of the escalator, right? It's a communal society. They respect each other. They don't throw their trash just on the street. Like, it's just a completely different way of living, and I love going to Asia because it's like a detox from the US, where unfortunately here, one of the things I dislike about the US is the entitlement that people have. You know, individualism has its upsides. And, you know, I think that has a lot to do with why there's so many successful entrepreneurs and like tech companies that come out of the US. Yet at the same time, when you go to Asia and you see that people genuinely care about their neighbor, about their friend, like in Japan, they don't really have like people stealing from them. You can leave your bike out, you know, unlocked. It's just a totally different world. So I always just love to see how other people live and see what they're doing that can be improved in like our country or our lives.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think it's you know, it's crazy because I did Europe and I was in Europe for all of October and November and a little bit of December. So when I came, my last trip was sorry, the last country I went to was Lisbon before I went back to Miami.
Mhm.
And coming being in Europe and then coming back to Miami and just going to, like, the local grocery store, like, going to Publix and, like, wanting to order something. It's and I'm not even trying to put off this negative energy, but you just like, "Wait, hi, how are you?" And it's just like, that doesn't happen. And, like, for me, like, I live in Colombia, like, you cannot step outside of Colombia without someone saying, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" And
Mhm.
yes, when I started, it's like, you can't walk down a block without someone acknowledging you. In
Mhm.
America, and especially in Miami, I can walk past 100 people and no one acknowledges my presence. Or even if I say hello first, it's just like, "What, you speaking to me? Like, what, what is going on?" It's
Mhm.
just like, nah,
Mhm.
it's just courtesy, you know? So, it's
Mhm.
definitely different when you're visiting, you know, other countries and places.
Yeah, I love that. Well, on that note, what brought you to Colombia originally and why did you stay?
Yeah, so I came here in 2022. August of this year will make 4 years I've been in Colombia. In 2022, I sort of had a career change. I was working for a talent management company in LA. from 2018 to 2022. And I decided to branch out and start my own management company. And when I did that, obviously I had a lot of different inquiries and people are like, yo, what? You're on your own now? Hey, I got this artist, I got this rapper, I got this singer. And so a producer duo by the name of Breakfast in Vegas, who are my close friends and also my business partners now, they're like, hey man, I see that you started your own management company. We're here in Colombia. We're making a lot of music with a lot of different artists and talent here in Colombia. You need to get down here like right away. And I'm just like, nah, man, I'm good. Yeah, I'm living in LA. I'm in Hollywood and Highland. I got my condo. Like things are going great for me. I got my clients. I got my retainers. I'm chilling. They're like, nah, listen, please. There's a festival in Colombia, July 3rd. It was called Afro Dance Hall Fest. They're like, yo, you need to come to this festival. There's an artist we're looking at. His name is Hamilton. He's amazing. Come down here. And I'm like, at the time, my best friend, she was living with me. She was also like an assistant of mine. And I was like, look, you speak Spanish. Come with me to Colombia. This will be a business trip for the both of us. Come with me to Colombia and let's go to this festival. Let's look at these artists that they're telling me about. And we came down in July and I was just so blown away with like one, just how vastly Colombia has changed since I came in 2016 to now
Mm,
2022, looking like, wait, this is crazy. Then going to that festival and
mhm,
seeing the culture of music, the culture of dance that I feel
mhm,
like we lost a lot in America, where no one's really dancing and like partying and feeling free. Like we're just like standing and looking at the rappers and artists like on stage, right? When I get to Colombia, and it's like a dance hall fest. It's like
mhm,
crowds, they battling, they doing this, the girls. I'm like, what is this? And then I get on
mhm,
stage and it's this artist who I've never heard of, but he's like the biggest thing down here. And he has people singing his music and his songs. I was like, okay, cool. So something, turned on in my brain where I was like, okay, I need to come down here.
mm,
There's obviously a lot of great talent here in Colombia. The Latin genre of music is on the sort of rise, right? And I think because of Bad Bunny, as we can see now, Bad Bunny has opened up the doors and he's about to do Super
yeah,
Bowl. But at that time, Puerto Rico was sort of like winning the race of reggaeton and what the Latin scene
mhm,
was. And then
mhm,
here in Colombia, there's this sort of migration happening with artists that are
mhm,
Latin artists, Colombian artists that's also doing sort of Afro beats, dance hall, and other sort of genres. And I'm just like,
mhm.
okay, I gotta see what this is. So August, my birthday is August 8th. So I went back to LA after that July festival trip. And then the next month I came back down and I was like, all right, let me find an apartment. I got an apartment on my birthday. That was my birthday gift to myself. I got an apartment here in Colombia and I was paying two different rents and I just didn't care. Like, I have to figure out what this is. Like the thing about
Mhm,
me, I always say this all the time, is that my curiosity is the reason why I got so far in my career and in life, right?
mhm,
Because I'm
mhm,
just curious. Like whatever that sort of goosebumps feeling is, whatever that sort of like spider sense that I have, or that third eye,
mhm,
act on it, right? And it can lead me to certain, undiscovered roles, or it can lead me down a path of like true manifestation. And so for me, my curiosity of like, what is Colombia? What was that feeling? What did I see when I came in July for that festival?
mhm.
I got to figure out what that is. And so it has now led me to be here for 4 years. So yeah.
I love that, and that's what I tell everyone is, like, you're gonna fall in love. It's beautiful there, there's an energy there, the people are friendly, like, everything is just getting better, and whether you're interested in tech or crypto or music, like, Medellin has become such a hot spot for all of that, and like you were mentioning, like, J Balvin, Karol G, Maluma, I'm pretty sure they're all from Medellin, and so I know the music scene is growing, I know local artists there, but on that note, like, what do you look for in potential artists that you're looking to manage?
Yeah. So I've been switching gears. So I can take it as two parts, right? I have a management company. It's called Major Management Group. We've been managing talent. I've been managing talent for over a decade. But then with the company that I created, Majors Management Group, we started in 2022. So, and then now last year, I created a record label with my friends here called Afrolumbia. It's sort of this new emerging record label here in Colombia. We've been doing a lot of different events. We have merch. And then the premise and the foundation is a record label. So our idea is to sort of like connect the two of that sort of diaspora with the sort of Afro and the sort of Latin Colombian scene and merge them together with our talent, for our marketing, brain power and skills. And for me, when it comes to looking at talent, I think it's The music is one piece, right? I think we all obviously, right? Like we have to love the music. The music has to be great, but you can teach that, right? And you can get better at time and you can place artists, especially new artists with great producers to sort of find that sound. I
Mhm.
think when I look for talent, it is what's their story? Like what's that identity?
Mm.
Like what's the colors? What is that image that they're portraying? How are they on social media? What is their sort of awareness when it comes to social media and how to use it? And then there's a skill to we see it now on TikTok, developing content, shooting yourself, having no money and being independent, right? Because you can sign with the biggest labels in the world and you can still sit on a shelf, right? But if you're not with
Yeah.
people and I'm seeing you create these elaborate music videos with your phone or you're outside, you hustle, or you have a street team when you're pushing your music and you're showing up every single day on social media or out in the real world doing pop-up shows or there's some sort of branding asset, what's the word I'm looking for? Aspect to it, right? And there's colors and there's logos and there's designs. And I'm just like, okay, this is a star, right? This is a
Mhm.
star in the making. And so I sort of kind of look at the world and not just the music or not just the sort of person that I'm looking to sign. I'm like,
Mhm.
what is that world that they're building? And how can I come in and add to that and bring value and bring resources and not just dollars, right? Like educating that person to like, hey, you're on the right path. Like, let me help you
Mhm.
to sort of nurture that brand and get you to a place where now we're really like world building and you're
Mhm.
becoming the artist that you want to be. There's a lot of different things that I sort of look for. And again, just because I was an artist, I
Mhm.
know what to really look at outside of just the music and your Spotify streams because that stuff, it doesn't really always validate you as an artist.
Mhm. Exactly. I love that. Well, I definitely have someone to introduce you to, who's Colombian and she's an artist after this, but that's awesome. That's really, really cool. And I can hear your passion about everything and your knowledge and expertise. So that's amazing that you're able to equip your talent with, what the things that that works. Cause it's a lot of things that you have to do in a symphony and an orchestra that work together to create that brand and to get you in front of the right people. So I'm curious then, like, what does a day look like for you in Colombia in terms of like your work, your routine?
Yeah. So I will say in 2026, my routine has changed a lot. Obviously, I just like I said, we talked about the whole Europe thing and coming back to sort of wake up on your own dime and time and just sort of do whatever. So I will say my routine changed. I used to be sort of a stickler when it comes to production and my work ethic, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
but that you get burnt out from that, right? You get burnt out from waking up and like checking emails and being on, right, every single time. And I
Yeah.
used to work like that. I'm no longer this sort of young, snappy kid that just wants to work, work, work. Now I'm sort of prioritizing my, living more than working. And I think once you start to live in other countries, you realize like everyone lives like that, right? We are sort of like reverse. We're like prioritize working and then living is like last. Then you go to these other countries and you're thinking you're doing something amazing, and they're like, "Yo, we don't care to work. Like, you wanna come? Hey, we're going to the gym. Hey, we just gonna go sit at the park and have some cafecito and some bread and talk."
Exactly.
And for me, when you first come here, you're like, "What? Oh, you gotta work." And then now I'm like, so my day is I wake up, I start with the gym. There's not an email, there's not a phone call, nothing. Like my
Mm.
day starts with the gym. My day starts with, sunlight. I don't even take an Uber to the gym. I walk to the gym. I walk down a big hill and I gotta walk back up that big hill. And that's how I start my day, right? That's for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then we sort of, my day to day, my to do list of like, okay, cool. What emails do I have to send out today? Or what do I have on my calendar as far as like meetings or calls or things? We have a studio, we have a recording studio here in Colombia. And, sometimes
Mhm.
we have artists coming in, during the day or at night. And so I'm working with my team and my staff to try to figure out like what is our, our days looking like. But honestly, it's really about exploring self and really sitting in that lifestyle of like prioritize living in pursuit of happiness because the work is the work. I can do that in like 2 seconds.
Mhm.
I can check the email or I can create this sort of rollout strategy or this sort of marketing
Mhm.
plan for an artist, but I'm not gonna like I'm at a place where now I'm just like I'm not gonna burn myself out about that. So
Mhm.
it has changed. If you would have asked me that last year, I would have told you probably a different story. Well, from 9 a.m.
Mhm.
I did this to 10 this and nah, this is a lot of downtime now. Don't worry, we're still getting work done, you know?
Mhm. I love that. I mean, I agree, and, like, that is something that I love about Latin culture, like, I've spent a lot of time in Mexico City and Medellin, like, it's slower, it's more about enjoyment and family and community, and in Colombia, there's a holiday almost every week, it seems like.
Monday? Ooh, what is yeah. You know, here
It's like
people know people don't know, look, they have this thing here called Ciclovia, so anyone watching, on a every Sunday in Colombia, it's not just Medellin. Ciclovia is when you go out and they block off the roads in surrounding neighborhoods, and you just walk, run, bicycle, rollerblade, sit there and talk with your friends. It is literally a day where they just shut down the street, and you're just being active. You're just getting outside and you're just going. And I admire that so much because what? I've never seen that. I've never seen that. You only see that in America when it's a marathon or some sort of 5K.
Mhm.
This is every Sunday. Rain, sleet, snow, whatever you want to do. It's every day. So I admire that.
Definitely. Yeah, that's one of the things I miss, and because Medellin is such a small community, like, you meet people really quickly, whether it's Colombians or gringos and expats, entrepreneurs, like, everyone sorta knows each other, which is great, so you run into people all the time. I love Cyclovia because I always run into tons of my friends, you catch up with people, and, like, that's what it's all about, and it's like, it's so much easier on the nervous system when you have that slow living, and Medellin is just simply gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to my whole life.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's sort of been my hack, when I go to countries, even when I coming from Virginia to Miami, Miami to LA is like my biggest hack, and I tell people all the time is community, right? Outside of anything that I'm doing in my professional career, my social impact and the way that I can build the community is for me is a must, right?
Mhm,
It is my advantage to anywhere I go
mhm.
to because like you said, right? Because you may come here by yourself, may not know anyone, well, there's a sense of community that happens when you come here, right? You start to, whether you go to the gym, you're in a smart fit. One day you walk in, someone says hi to you. The next day, now you start working out together, right? You go play
Mhm,
basketball. You didn't
mhm,
know nobody the next day. Now you have a whole basketball team of friends, right? And it's like that everywhere you go here, where there's a
mhm.
foundation of community, there's a foundation of being in a neighborhood, and now you know your local, juice man or juice lady, or the guy that makes the bread, and so
Mhm.
your barber, and so and I love that because you sort of miss that when you in America. We don't really always have that. Certain
Yeah.
neighborhoods in certain states do, obviously,
Mhm.
and certain
Mhm.
places have these communities, but when you hear it's like everybody, now you're like, "Hola, papi," "Hola," you're talking to people, and it's like, "No, this is my man." It's like, "Nah, it's the
Yeah.
juice lady. I gotta go to see the juice," and so I love that, and that's what we've been doing here. We built 2
Mhm.
different communities with
Mm.
Afrolumbia, with the events that we do and the Afrobeats parties, and then I built another community called Los Gringos Paisas, where it's a basketball community. We have over 300 members in a WhatsApp group. We have over 1,000, followers on Instagram.
Mhm.
Every weekend, we're like, okay, cool. We're gonna show up on a Sunday and play basketball, or Tuesday and Thursday nights we're gonna play at the stadium. And so that sense of community and ground and world building that we've been doing here has been
Mhm.
our sort of purpose, because we don't want to be like the other type of people that may come to Colombia and taint it. We
Mhm.
don't need to speak on that, but for us, it's really like what is our social footprint here and what can we do to add into this beautiful country and make ourselves presence, but then in a way of giving back. And so we've been focusing on that a lot.
I love that because the first time I went to Colombia and Medellin was 2019, and it has changed so much since then. Like, not
Really.
only like I feel like back then most people knew it as a place to party and do their bachelor parties and stuff, but now it's like the biohacking, the health and wellness scene, stem cell clinics, just so many different things opening up that like you can choose the party route and do that every weekend, or you can do an ice bath and sauna every
Yeah.
single night with your friends. Like, and there's going to be a group of people, there's events being hosted around that. There's like sweat and chill, all of those. Like, I think it's great that they're promoting things that don't involve alcohol and drugs.
Yeah. Oh, you said it earlier. I think Medellin's becoming a melting pot, and there's so many other places, cities here in Colombia. Medellin has definitely become that melting pot, and wellness has become a huge component of one of the reasons why people come here. And like you said, the stem cells, or just the
Hmm.
dentist. You paying less to go to the dentist to get an annual checkup or 6 months or whatever your physical, and so There's so many different reasons to come here, and I think it's going to continue to grow. I think entertainment
Mhm.
is this sort of new foundation, especially with music. And we saw just this past weekend, Bad Bunny did 3 nights here. Like what? Like what are you talking about? So right before the Super Bowl, he just did 3 nights in Colombia. Like, come on, this is a place to be. So
Hmm.
I'm excited to see where the next 5 to 10 years take it. You know.
Amazing. Wow. Well, I guess just to wrap things up here, then, do you have any advice for entrepreneurs or people that want to go into talent management?
Yeah, so my advice isn't just about talent management. I think, and I love the entertainment business and the industry as a
Hmm.
whole. And so I think as people are navigating themselves in their creative space when it comes to TikTok and social media, I think my one advice is understand that you may be the niche, right? I think sometimes we try to identify ourselves by a product or a business or what we may have shared on an app. And I say this for myself, like is my advice myself. Like I'm the niche, right? There isn't a place that is my identity. There isn't my career path that's my identity. There isn't a product that I sell that's my identity. It's me. And
Hmm.
so people who
Hmm.
are understand that you are the niche, right? You
Hmm.
are the sort of product that you need to be, and sell that. Sell, sell who you are and sell your sort of there's a skill to that. And there is people will buy into you, right? And then
Hmm.
whatever you're selling or whatever you're doing in your career is just an add-on. So I think when we think about niche and oh, I have to only stick to one thing, let's debunk
Hmm.
that and understand that
Hmm.
we vast and who we are. And tomorrow you can start a podcast, and next week you could want to be, playing basketball or want to get into dancing or acting or modeling or whatever. You can do it all. And so I think that's my advice for sure.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today.
No, I appreciate you, man. It's definitely a pleasure. And look, I congratulate you on this, and I've been watching all the series on your socials. So and thank you for having me. This is my first podcast of the year. This is great.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to do this all over again in a couple months and catch up then.
So, thank
All right. And for everyone else, thank you so much for watching the Breakthrough Blueprint and tune into the next episode.